Mark Hawkins. I'm Mark Hawkins with Hands on Deck, and I'm the president. And we have 2 new board members, which is so weird to say that between you 2 guys. I've known these guys as long as Hands on Deck has been in existence, which is pretty awesome. So Hands on Deck started in the 3rd floor of the downtown library in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We have to hold the mic up, probably. And I had that opportunity in the library because of this gentleman, Dennis Rockhill, who at that time was the president of an organization called Proto. And Nate was coming to help out with a program called Sea Perch, which this year's Sea Perch competition is...
It's our 6th annual competition.
It's this weekend.
It is this weekend, Saturday morning, February 22nd.
And where is it at?
It's going to be at the Ashwaubenon Pool. No.
At Southwest High School.
Yeah,
Southwest High School.
Southwest High School, sorry, yes.
And I will not be there. My wife will be there. I'm usually there photographing, but I have a carving class I'm teaching at Barkhausen. So, but you 2 guys will be there. You kind of run it, and then you make sure it runs.
Yes.
It's very much a team effort.
Yeah,
For real. And then Anne France will be there smiling, as always.
And running the show.
And running the show.
Thank you, Anne. Very much.
Absolutely.
So let's dig into this. So these 2 guys are really important to a lot of the ways I see youth nonprofit work growing in education field, particularly in the field of STEM education, not just relying on high school and college for trades education, but even digging a little deeper into the younger ages and what that means. How young can we teach our kids about trade skills? And then we'll dig in some other things. But first question is going to you, Dennis Rockhill. Mm-hmm. And what I would like you to talk about is define STEM education and define the boundaries. What are the boundaries in your mind right now for STEM education?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been working really hard to actually blur those boundaries, blur the boundaries of STEM education. I think STEM is a little bit of a buzz focus right now, and it's very important. But I also think that the skills that surround STEM and sort of support STEM are also in need of a lot of attention. So I like the idea that we are building what I call that maker mindset, and the mindset around problem solving and critical thinking and collaboration that supports STEM immensely, but it also supports the support systems that build towards STEM as well. So I don't know what the boundaries necessarily are. I see a lot of work going on in science, technology, and engineering and math. But those all sort of have really long tendrils that reach out into everything else that we do. So I think it's really important not just to be building STEM, but also building the support structures around that.
And I kind of forgot really to give a little background on these 2 guys. So Dennis is the Makerspace guru in Green Bay and probably further out than that. But when we talk about STEM education, Dennis is pretty much at the heart of almost every initiative in Green Bay to some degree. Have you been a part of the STEM network? Are you still a part of the STEM network?
Yeah, the Greater Green Bay Area STEM Network.
And you work for Einstein Project, which is
Yep.
STEM in its very core of everything
Einstein
it does.
Project, we provide science and engineering kits and curriculum to schools.
And you're located at the what center?
At the STEM Center.
UWGB campus.
Yeah.
Nate, what do you do?
So I, by day, am Director of Industrial Security and Technology for Fincantieri Marinette Marine, and we build the coolest thing in the Great Lakes, the Freedom-class littoral combat ship for the U.S. Navy. In my spare time, I am now on the board of Hands on Deck, and I'm also a member of the Greater Green Bay Area Council of the Navy League of the United States.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a long title.
So I'm going to give you a question, and I'm going to put the mic down and get a cup of coffee.
Absolutely.
So why? Well, why are you involved in any of this? So I'm going to put the mic down. Actually, I'm going to turn it off. Go grab a cup of coffee.
Sure. So that's a question I think nobody's ever asked me. And quite honestly, I'm involved because I just care about the youth. And so this all came about, Sea Perch and my involvement with youth in Green Bay came about as part of the Navy League. I'm the current past president of the council, and the Navy League has partnered with the Office of Naval Research and MIT to promote the Sea Perch program. And I thought that that was the coolest thing that we could provide to youth in the area here in Green Bay, the greater Green Bay area. And for those of you who are participating or have not heard about the program, we extend this program throughout the state. And so we have teams as far south as Berlin, and then we've got Door County, Washington Island, and we've had folks from Menominee, Michigan in the UP. So I think it's a great way to extend out into the community, touch everyone, and let them know that we need STEM, we need skilled trades. You can start early. It's okay to be interested in robotics and things of that nature. And you can apply science early in your life to do something that's actually fun yet educational. So my focus has been on supporting the sea services. Obviously, we build the ship, and but supporting the youth to get them interested and engaged. Wisconsin's got a very large and long heritage of shipbuilding, and people aren't aware of that. And so Sea Perch ties that heritage to our youth right from the beginning. And so we purposely extended this program down to the middle school level because we wanted to touch kids as early as 5th and 6th grade. So,
and I think it's really important to kind of put an exclamation point on the importance of tying the robotics, the design thinking process with kind of our water heritage here.
yes.
We're on the largest freshwater estuary here in the world. Right. We have an extensive shoreline all the way, that Sea Perch touches all the way from Milwaukee up around Door County and then up to Marinette. So in Wisconsin here, we have an incredible amount of shoreline that is very important
Yes.
to us.
Very nice.
Doing a lot of research on water quality and water runoff at UWGB. We've got new water right down the road from where we're sitting. There's just a kind of a hotbed of exploration here in the shipbuilding industry that's so strong here. And the history, when we talk to Door County Maritime Museum and Manitowoc Maritime Museum, and how one was building submarines and the other was building sub chasers.
Yes, absolutely.
I thought that was fascinating.
Right. And the Mississippi. Most people don't think about the other side of the state.
On the other side of the state.
But Sea Perch, for me, the best example of how Sea Perch could be applied and children could see that was a story of there was a team of Naval Sea Cadets who were out in the Mississippi, and they had a Sea Perch kit, and they had a unit, and they're actually testing it in the river. And as they were doing that, they put a GoPro camera on it, and they actually came across a submerged log that had splinters, nails, and metal sticking from it, which could have actually damaged the hull of actual ships traversing the river. They used their Sea Perch to grab it and bring it out of the water. So they actually got to do something with their kit on an
Haven't heard the
average
story.
Saturday. Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's
awesome.
really cool.
You should tell that story on Saturday.
So
So, one of the things that, one of the growing pains of Hands on Deck is I feel like everything we do is cool. Like, as far as we're low technology, so we use hand tools. We do have a machine room back there with all kinds of powered tools, but we have so many options to choose from. And I'm starting to realize over the past couple of days of having people come in and interviewing that finding what you're passionate about, but what does your community really need, or maybe what the market is for the community. I hate to say that because I like to create my own market kind of guy.
Right.
But what does the market need or desire? And you guys keep hitting on the water. So being able to, and I know Hands on Deck is all about building wooden boats, and Sea Perch is all about, so we have all these water activities, but not straying from that and kind of focusing on that. So what other kinds of water-based STEM things come to the top of your head besides robotics? Not to put you on the spot, Dennis Rockhill.
Oh, me.
Oh, okay. I'll let him think for a second. We take a wooden board and we make a paddle, out of 2 other little pieces of wood, put a rubber band on it, and we make a simple floating rubber band boat. And then we give kits or parts and pieces and hot glue guns and nails and whatever else in a pile to kids and let them just freeform make.
Right. Well, I think what you're bringing up is a lot of navigating on water, and I think there's a lot of attention to be paid to, water quality and water movement throughout the area.
Environmental science.
Right, right. So you bring a fair amount of that together. We're studying runoff because we're very much an agricultural area too. So there's a lot of runoff coming from farm fields that
Rick
we
talked
need
about
to
that
be able
last
to
night.
deal with.
Yep.
Right. Water movement. If you just tour New Water right here and see how they actually move the water through the tanks, and they're actually releasing cleaner water into the river than what the river actually has. The idea of the science that they're using in order to clean up our wastewater from a humongous area is really incredible when you go and you learn about that. We've done projects in our makerspace that are about moving water, creating pumps to lift water from a lower area and then run it down through a fountain of some sort. So, there's a lot more than just navigating it. We do a lot of navigation right out here on the bay, which is wonderful,
Right.
and fun, and important for commerce. But just how we deal with the cleanliness of the water and how we actually get water to where we need it most, and how we keep water from going where we don't want it to go.
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of important work being done for that.
Yeah. Are you ready to throw Nate a super hard question?
Do I want to throw Nate?
No,
you got a good one?
I'm gonna throw him a really hard one. You
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
Nate, how much money should we spend on this?
On STEM,
On STEM, on our youth? Like, how do you figure that out?
you can't put a price on it. And so you should spend, I think, as much as necessary to get someone engaged and get them passionate about any activity. And I think people think of STEM right now in a very closed box. And I agree with Dennis. We need to blur the boundaries of STEM and expand that. It's really, and I like the term that Einstein Project used, UWGB, the Makerspace. It's about touching a material and transforming it to a tool, to a use, to a purpose that benefits not just the individual, but society. All of that is STEM.
So no matter if it's a log or a piece of steel.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's all science. You look at old skilled trades. Skilled trades are the root of STEM. People may not have been able to put a concept or a theory or some educational background to it, but they knew the reactions, catalysts, architecture, engineering. It was all there, but it was inherent, it was experimental. That is the beginning of STEM. In the modern world, to me, the only difference is the tools and the technology that we can use to help us get to a developed product faster. But tying it out to our area, water is a good focus simply because we're surrounded by it. Sustainability is important in the areas Dennis mentioned. But STEM is any activity to me that will stimulate the mind of a youth to be a successful participant in our society and help move us forward in a positive way. Period. So I think we can not spend enough.
And the only way I would expand on what you said is I watch all of our mentors come in, and that's also STEM programming. So we have a lot of retired guys, and I'm super thankful for them. And so them just learning how to make this Rubo book stand out of one piece, and when they crack it open the first time, it's like a 5-year-old. They're like,
Exactly.
it works, And so it's not just however old, 4 years old, 5 years old. It's not just 4 or 5 years old. It's, a human being.
Right.
We all enjoy
Absolutely.
discovery and.
I'll expand on that just a little bit. I often say, STEM is expensive. It's expensive, but I think if we look at it more as an investment than as a cost, especially in the education part of this and the work you're doing and the work we're all doing together, I think is very important to look at it as an investment that you're going to get multiples in return. If it's not actual, materials, it's equipment,
Right.
it's sometimes you just got to pay facilitators to get a good kind of sustained commitment from them. That happens every once in a while, and I think that's a realistic part of what we're doing. And really good, well-trained people who come in and can really teach well, I mean, that costs money as well. So I think all of that is a significant investment, but it is a very good investment. That I think is very important. So if you want a dollar amount, $1 million, that's what you need.
Dennis could spend $1 million pretty quick.
I think
That's
I could,
right.
yeah.
And I think about it like this. Right now, Hands on Deck doesn't even have operating hours. We're limited in the classes we can offer. The STEM Education Center has operating hours, and they're very, not limited, but they're very, it's new as far as what kids come in and what age and how they operate with all the other organizations that are inside. So I think part of the future is a space that is multi-organizational, and Chip McDonald, if he was sitting here, he'd probably start clapping. A space that's multi-organizational that has 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. at night, and part of that space is just open. Like if you want to be a member or pay a fee, you can come in and make. And part of that space is guided instruction with projects. And it's not wood. It's wood, metal, plastic, fabric, rubber bands, hot glue, cut nails. Start getting into some of the stuff that we do. Shellac, mixing your own shellac. So I really think it's that opportunity to, tonight I want to make something out of wood, but next week I want to come back and do some acrylic. Can we work with some acrylic and maybe do some laser engraving? And there's a set fee for that. And so then there's scholarships available. Hey, if, I know you can't afford to do that acrylic thing, but we have a scholarship from Midland Plastics. And so, whoever might give towards that to help that kid learn how to cut acrylic or engrave an acrylic.
Right, exactly.
I think it's important to look at that programming as sort of this matrix of structured and unstructured and learning and applying. I think is a very important way to look at it, and some of it is very open-ended. Some of it is very closed-started, like you have to learn a particular skill to run a particular piece of equipment or use a certain kind of material. That's very directive learning. But once you are learning that and you've had a chance to tinker around with some of those concepts, then you can start applying those to your own ideas. So that's sort of where the magic starts to happen. And once I'm applying something and working through something that I would consider a personal strength, I might be sitting next to Nate and going, hey, this leather thing I'm making here would be really cool with that piece of metal that you're working on there. Can you show me how to do that? Or can we collaborate on a project?
Exactly.
That's where I think the magic really starts to happen.
Yeah. And I think you just have to really think of it as you're investing in your community, you're investing in your youth, you're investing in your society.
Yeah.
Every dollar spent, every dollar donated, every piece of material, every hour of time, it all adds up, it's all necessary, and it's all accepted. So the gifts need to come, they need to come continuously, but they become sustainable. As a community grows into its organizations and the organizations grow into the community, they can sustain themselves in a very beneficial way.
Well, we create a ton of stuff that has value as far as resale and saleable goods. Absolutely a ton of stuff. And so anytime I'm, working on a grant or anything, it's like, how are you going to continue this program that you're starting? I love the Hands on Deck model because I'm looking at a green canoe and a 23-foot rowboat and a Dan Kidney duck boat loft back there. All these items are resellable. And so just trying to figure that market out. And, that's just wooden boats. That's,
Right. Well, and these chairs.
the chairs.
The chairs,
You
absolutely.
want to grab one? So this is a
at the
walnut
craftsmanship on
Windsor
that.
side chair designed by Steve Cerubis. And we've had 2 kids build chairs just like this. One's over there, a 12-year-old by the name of Luke. You guys met him last night. And then also Mateo, who was 8 when he started Hands on Deck this fall, and he had a birthday at some point. So I think Mateo is 9 now. But Mateo and Luke, they were a trial run with the chair class, and proof's in the pudding. And so,
Very good.
yeah. It's just really cool. And one of the problems I have with all of this is aesthetics, because aesthetics are important. How the combat ships look are kind of important, right? They can't just
very
be.
important.
I mean, sometimes they're ugly, but they shouldn't be, right? I mean, there's certain aspects that aren't as refined or whatever, but there are certain parts of those ships that are just. If you go to the train museum here in Grand Bay, a shout out to the Railroad Museum, and you look at some of those those locomotives that were manufactured before the turn of the century, like they're works of art.
Absolutely.
How the copper's bent, and so
And they're purpose built. That's the thing. There are some things that aesthetically you can make look good, but functionally it has to be different. It has to be the way it is because the science behind it says this is the best final form of whatever you're making. And that's, you look at the chairs, you look at resellable value. It's something that I think Dennis mentioned of you just tinker and you start. And I still have things, well, my sister has them over the years, that I started as youth. Bookshelves, little coin chests, small drawer sets. I built things as a youth that if I go to my sister's house now, they're everywhere. Everything that I built as a kid.
I think he's telling
has.
us he's handy. He's getting handier by the minute. All right.
But it started with wood.
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, I've built furniture for the house. And that's not part of my day job, but it's something that I never forgot. Today, we work in steel. We work in aluminum. I no longer work in wood, but nonetheless, the interest has been there ever since I was a child. Right. We have aluminum hangers that I did as a student in high school through junior
That's right. You were telling me about that.
Yes.
You started a mock company?
We actually started a true company that...
Not a mock company.
Not a mock company, a true company. And for 3 years, you start a company, you run it, you sell a product, and then you dissolve the company. And I still have the hangers, thanks to Alcoa.
Like clothes hangers.
Hangers, but they're anodized aluminum.
Oh, really?
And
sold these things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are
awesome.
30 years old, and they look as beautiful as they did the day we built them. And I've got a closet full of them that my family fights over because they're the sturdiest thing that we have in there. And I've not found any product to this date like that.
So this brings up, I don't know what time it is, but we should probably close up, yeah?
Oh, we got 15 minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. So this is something that plagues me that I don't really talk about a whole lot in public because I don't think there's necessarily an answer for it. It's an individual thing, but how perfect should you be? Should you constantly be striving to make, Roubaud has a book, these Roubaud book stands, to make as perfectly as possible? It's like a 17th century French book. But where is that line? Because I feel like everybody that comes into Hands on Deck has a desire to make the first project perfect. But at the same time, even if you can't do that, or even if you only have time to make a demo, a prototype, like there's always that desire within us to like make it perfect. So where's that balance?
I think first of all, it depends on how you define perfect. That's a big piece of it. In my mind, perfect means you walk out of here completely engaged and ready to do it again.
So it has nothing to do with the piece.
I think a lot more about the process more than anything. The product will always be imperfect. There's always something you can improve upon, or your taste might change and you want it to be different, a different kind of perfect. I came from the packaging world, so you started in wood. I started in cardboard, and even then, it's the whole act of prototyping and using that prototype as a hypothesis to test a variable, to me, has always been extremely important. And even when that final product comes out, you have to launch. You have to get it out there. It may not be perfect yet, but the market is ready for it, or the assignment is ready to turn in, or the deadline is here, and you need to always bring your best and your A game to what you are doing, but understand that perfection is a process, and I don't think it's necessarily in the final product.
How would the military feel about perfection, or what's the definition?
you can never be perfect. And I will tell you, and forgive me for those who are still on active duty or don't like this, but 80 is as good as 100. If you achieve 80%, that's as good as 100. At 80%, for most things, you're functional, you can achieve the mission. But you'll never be perfect. Things will break, things will mar, things will scar. There's wear, there's tear, there's variables. People cannot work at 100% capacity. If you build something and you try to create something to achieve 100%, is to exceed the limits of humans.
Yeah.
We're not infallible, therefore whatever we touch will be infallible in some way. And if you pull out a magnifying glass, you will find imperfection in everything. So I agree with Dennis, it's about the process. Perfection is being able to repeat what you've done in a reliable fashion to support providing something functional if you're talking about manufacturing.
Yeah.
But look, turn to education, teaching. Show one teacher that's perfect. They may be totally honed in their skills, but they can't control the variables outside of them, which are
Right.
the students.
Right.
And some students just don't learn the way others do. But that teacher is as close to perfect as possible. And I'm sure we all have one who we say, hey, this teacher touched me in a way that no other one has. But if we all three went to the same school, we'd have 3 different teachers.
Teachers, yeah.
And to us, they'd all be perfect.
How
I
does
also think there's a Japanese aesthetic called wabi sabi.
we actually have a printout.
Oh, do you?
Lay it around.
About
Thanks,
that.
Ken Quaid brought it in.
I mean, it is about embracing the imperfect.
Yes.
It is about understanding that we humans are part of this process, and when we leave our mark on it, which is usually imperfect,
Yes.
that there's a beauty to that, and there's something that it's kind of warm and approachable and friendly when we're doing that. Even in some of our manufacturing styles, I mean, we try to get that out of it, but it's still inherent, even if it's underneath the final product or inside of the process.
Yes.
How do you motivate employees at Marinette Marine to have the best weld or?
They understand the importance of the product. And that's really it. You tie them, and I spoke of this earlier, you tie them to the bigger picture. They understand that every weld, every pipe installed, every piece of cable pulled goes together in a system that has a very distinct purpose, and that purpose is to sail the seas in the safest, most efficient manner to protect our troops, our sailors, and bring them home safe. They get that. And you tie it to the highest level of what that product is going to do and bring it down to the individual job at the time. Every seam, every nut, every bolt, every torque measurement, every single piece matters.
And they know it. It's pretty
And they
awesome.
know it.
It sounds like they're tying it to the mission. I mean, they understand
Absolutely.
the importance of what they're doing
Yes.
because they know what they're doing, how that contributes to that final goal.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for you, but
Yeah, no, that's
what I'm
it's
hearing.
absolutely,
I'm hearing,
it's
I'm
absolutely,
paraphrasing.
yeah.
So we haven't talked about the North Coast Manufacturing Alliance, but the North Coast Marine Manufacturing Alliance is all the shipbuilders in the area, and then vendors that supply. And I actually came to the table through photography. So I didn't even come as hands on deck to the table at the North Coast, and it just kind of developed from there. But a huge shout out to the Manufacturing Alliance and the Marine Alliance. Thank you, Anne France, for supporting Sea Perch and Hands on Deck and bringing all the different builders together to have conversations like this. We're watching this awesome opportunity expand in Door County with the museum.
Yes.
And they have dug in to get into the high schools to do cardboard regattas, which we had a part of and was quite fun. Sea Perch. And they just want to keep growing and expanding because they have water on all sides, almost all sides, right? I
yeah.
mean, the channel, it's,
Channel, right
the
through-
Right
channel.
through the, yeah.
And so let's take 1 minute and talk about the future. So future STEM, future Hands on Deck, future Weinstein Project, which maybe he might talk about, future Makerspace.
Future, as we continue to grow, we continue to expand. We've got momentum. We've got the ear of the community. We need to tie back into local politicians, local organizations at the county and city level, I think, and we need to bring the mission of Hands on Deck to the forefront. That, to me, right now is my focus with this organization, to make sure that there's community awareness and continued growth in terms of participation.
I haven't said this before on this panel, but the mission of Hands on Deck has a lot to do with experiential learning and traditional skills. But I describe it as when a kid walks in or an adult walks in, they're walking in not knowing how to do something. They're doing something they're incapable of doing in their mind, but they're walked through the process by a very good teacher like Pete over there who did the Rubo book. And when they walk out, like Jack popped open his Rubo book stand the other day, and they have now accomplished something they had no idea they could do.
Absolutely.
So we're constantly forcing people out of their comfort zone. Final words there, Dennis Rockhill?
Well, I think today is very much about Hands on Deck. And, while there is a community of STEM activists, I'll say, whether it's industry or individuals or organizations, places like Hands on Deck and people like you, Mark, who dive so far in head first into this,
too far.
Consequences be damned sometimes.
That's right.
I think it's admirable to see that, and I think to be able to support your work, what you do, whether it's a roof over the head, it's tools in hand, or it's materials or mentors, I think the support for this is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I think, and the support, speaking of the roof overhead, why don't we just tell everybody where we are and what roof over our head exists right now?
Yeah, so yesterday we had Chip McDonald sitting right here, and we did an interview about the McDonald companies, which have been around for over 100 years, and the family roots go all the way back to logging on the bay in Peshtigo and Marinette. And so we're sitting in a 50, 60-year-old warehouse that has bowstring trusses, and it's just a beautiful space. It really is a beautiful space.
Yes.
And so the McDonald families graciously started to transform some of these spaces from like warehousing paper, which is super important to the infrastructure of Green Bay, but into, this is a retail space. So we have South Bay Marina, and South Bay Marina is a full service marina, but they're also a boat dealership. So they sell G3 boats, Suncatcher pontoons. And I'm looking at Patty, she's walking out. We also have Skipper's Choice. So Skipper's Choice is a full marine chandlery. Patty has everything from paint to life jackets to radios, full service. And they also do service on trolling motors, and they fix things that are broken. Patty's husband, Dave, is probably the most handiest mechanical, the guy can fix anything. I know Peter Rainier's probably listening to me, but Peter Rainier is equally as talented. But we're surrounded by these people that can look at something, even in a different material that they're not familiar with, and think around it and fix it.
Yes.
And that is phenomenal to have these people in our space. And so I just really shout out to South Bay and Skipper's Choice, because since they're here, we can be here at, what does Chip say? Market rate.
Market rate.
Market
Absolutely.
rate. So we really thank you to all those different organizations. Also, again, we have the Children's Museum, we have Bay Beach, we have NEW Water, we have the UWGB, which houses Sea Grant, Einstein. So there's so many organizations
4-H,
within
UW
4-H.
Yes.
UWGB's new mechanical engineering
Right here.
program.
And really not far down the river is ACE. So ACE Marine.
Absolutely.
Part of Fink and
Yes.
Terry, and they do a lot of work as a family
Yes.
for Bay Shipbuilding
Yes.
and Marinette
And
Marine.
Sturgeon Bay, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, well, guys, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Nate.
you bet.
Absolutely.
Looking
you bet.
forward
My
to
pleasure.
this year at Hands on Deck and all the cool stuff we're going to do, and focus in on some maritime STEM education.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right.